JP Adventures 19.
Alright, this is going to be hard to show you on camera, but the window, the rolling down window guide pretty much is just in the way of putting this back in. But if you unscrew the bottom screw, you pull it out a bit, and that'll give you enough room to slide the whole locking mechanism back in without making a big deal. So try to do this quickly. Slide it all the way up. And line everything up. And then you'll have to pretty much stick the locking like the rotary latch out through the door. You have to like kind of wiggle it through. There we go. And now we'll put in screws here, these three, and that'll hold it in place. And then we can install we'll put back the door handle, and then we'll install the central locking part. Alright, we're going to reinstall our 3 screws that hold it all in. So if you hold it here, it's pretty easy to line them up. Don't tighten them all down until you've got all 3 in. Just get it lightly snug, I guess is what you could call it. That's good, because that helps it, makes it easier to line them up. If you don't line the one up perfectly, it doesn't matter, because then it can move when you put the other ones in. Alright, now that all 3 screws are installed, I tighten this one up first, then this one, then this one. Now we have to reinstall this pin that goes from the door handle, so where you pretty much lift it up to open up the door, all the way down to the thing, and I'll just push it in with a screwdriver or something from the bottom. It's going to be hard to show you. Alright, we're now going to install our little bracket for the actuator. So before we install it, we'll actually put the actuator on there. That'll make it easier to fit everything in the end. So I've put the bolt, the M6 bolt, onto the actuator. The nut actually, I don't know if you can see that, it's actually inside that notch there. So I had to actually hold the nut, so it doesn't like rip through the notch, and then spin the top head of the bolt, because that way the bolt is a little bit off that notch and can spin freely. So that's how that looks when it's done. Make sure your motor on your actuator is actually facing away, because in here there's a bracket for that guide for the window, for the roll down window. So now I'll just stick this in here and try and line it up with this. So once I have that lined up, I'll stick the pin in there and try and tighten that down. So when you slide your bracket in with your actuator on it, make sure your actuator is pointing away from this little mount here for your rail for the roll down window, and then you slide it in here and make sure you go over. See, there's a wire here that goes to your door handle to open it up. You have to slide it over that to get it in there. That way it won't have as much resistance. If you put it underneath, then this thing will be bent like that, and you probably won't be able to open this again properly, which you obviously don't want, or else you won't be able to get out of the cab anymore. And yeah, so slide it under there, and then this should also be fixed here should fix there pretty easily without you having to pull it up, which will eventually cause damage to the actuator. And now I'm just gonna drill some holes here to fix the actuator, and then we'll test it with the system. Time to test out the fat drill bits. So this is a 3mm drill bit because that's just the size that I need for these screws, so the threads still cut into the sheet metal. So let's give it a try. Well, they definitely work well. So now that that's done, just have to make sure these holes line up. And I'm actually not far off, which is pretty surprising because I didn't measure them. Don't tell you that. Alright, so now I'll just push that up and screw it in with my screwdriver. Here we go. Alright, so our actuator is fixed. Door lock. So these only lock when they're closed. And now we will hook up the actuator and see if it works. Alright, so we have a little problem. So when the actuator pushes, because it's pushing up against this little ledge here, it has no problems pushing it. So from closed to open, so unlocking is easy. But when it's pulling, it has a little bit of play here. So it actually, instead of pulling it closed, it just kind of pulls it like that. So what I'm gonna do now is, because I don't want to have to take the whole thing out again, and I want to show a system to you guys that you can do without having to take this lock thing out itself, is I'm just going to drill another hole to put an M6 bolt in and thread it just so there's no play anymore, and then we'll see if that works. Now we'll tap it with an M6 thread. Alright, and we'll put in our M6 bolt. Alright, so there's two more pieces that you have to do to make sure that the actuator has enough power to pull and push. So pretty much you have to put a slight kink that goes like up and then back, so it goes over that wire that is attached to your door handle, and put a couple of M5 or M6 washers underneath this red lever, because that actually sits on top of this, like on the sheet metal. So you want to take that off a bit just so it doesn't scrape along and cause more friction. And now, as a test, so it's unlocked, lock, and unlock. Lock, unlock. Perfect. We got what we wanted. Only took a bit. So this is what I meant by putting a little bend in it. That's just where the wire goes from the door latch lift. Yeah, so it looks a bit like that. Yeah, it doesn't work.
He's lying. This is so cool. Look at this. And now it's time to assemble the door again, because the actuators are actually working now. find the right height of the hinges. Not there yet. Let's try again. The doors are in. It's a bit tricky because you have to make sure that the hinges are all the way up and then on the right angle so that the door shuts properly. The passenger door, it's alright, but it's not perfect. Like it shuts, but yeah, touches a little bit. But it was like this before and we couldn't fix it. And when we did the driver's side, it was super simple and it worked the first time pretty much. Yeah, we just pushed the hinges up while having the door open and like push the top in so it's like on the right angle, and then we tightened everything up and it worked. So yeah, we have doors, Patrick. No handles at the moment, but we we have doors. We still have to cut the seals though. We've been working all day long putting stuff back onto the Unimog, and now we're actually putting one of those tray mounts on again. Doors are on. Woohoo! Alright, it's about time. We will refuel the Unimog, Patrick. The first time in a year. Pretty cheap. So now we have diesel in the fuel tank, everything's connected. One last thing, one of our airlines is broken, and so we lift the cab so we can get to it a lot easier, and then we'll fix it, which is the last thing before we can try to start it. After 1 year. It's been a whole year. Alright, the first time after 1 year, we're trying to start it now. We hopefully put everything back in, not sure. Yeah, let's see what happens.
Ready?
Oh my god, it's running! Can't believe it, Patrick! So we're now checking for air leaks because we have replaced most of the lines. We have to check for air leaks, and we already found 2. And there was one spot where the brake lines were not tightened enough, pretty much loose. We forgot to tighten them. So yeah, we're just checking everything now. It's so exciting. Oh my god. Look at him. You should have seen his face once it started. The farmer was standing in front of the truck and he said, oh, he had such a big smile on his face. This is so cool! After 1 year! Happy Monday! We are working in the packing shed again. We just finished, and so what we did yesterday when the Mog was running, we checked for air leaks because we found some. We heard some, yeah. So one of the 11mm lines was broken. We knew that. We tried to fix it with a 10mm joiner. Obviously not perfect, so that was leaking air a little bit, but also our pressure regulator was like leaking so much air on the bottom where these little holes are, and we went through Osmog forum and Unimog groups and we saw other people had the same issue. So we took it apart and it was pretty nasty inside, and we discovered something else which is not good at all. So we'll show you what we're doing now.
Alright, so the problem was this T-piece, someone put the nut way too far down the end of the side, and surprisingly we actually didn't take this off, so couldn't have been us, because when we painted these we just left them on the tank. So someone screwed this in here too far and it pretty much just went right straight into the seal, and into this metal aluminum housing here, and it's pretty much caused 2 little gashes right there, and obviously wrecked the seal. So we're just going to put some RTV on the seal. I filed down the edges here so it's at least flush, and we might try and fill this with some like kneaded putty that dries pretty quickly, and then just kind of try and give it that same shape. And then the seal actually seals again now, so hopefully this will work and at least hold air so we can start driving around until we can order a new one. So we're going to put some RTV here to try and push this back down and just give it a bit of extra material here to hopefully create a better seal. So I've just got some turbs to degrease this whole area. We'll degrease this while we're at it as well, so we can add the putty. And then, alright, so next, RTV, something everyone should have if you own a Mog. Just gonna need a tiny little bit. And then just squish this down onto it, just to try and give it some more area here, and then let that RTV dry. So we've got some of this kneaded putty, which we highly recommend anyone. If you have like a radiator or something that you pop, just toss this stuff on it. It's really good. So it's just a 2-part thing. You just take a bit, make sure you just knead it until it's all the same color. Grab both, make sure you don't just grab one side. And so usually there's stuff for aluminium, then there's a water tank, and this is just multi-purpose because we use it for all kinds of stuff. So once you've kneaded it around in your hands for a while, just put some on those 2 gashes and try and form it the same way as it was before. So just push the circlip back in with a screwdriver, just wiggle it all around and got it in there. It's easier to line it up with those grooves on the sides, that way you can kind of lever it off the sidewall. Now I'm going to line up the exact spot where we did the repair, so as you can see it doesn't look too bad actually, and hopefully with enough pressure it'll seal. Yeah, so the RTV is down there, it's drying and it's pretty stuck. So it looks pretty good. So yeah, we're just going to stick it in there now, line that spot up, because that spot lined up pretty well and it seemed to be sealing. So I'm just going to stick this on here. Okay.
Alright, we put everything back on and now we'll just give it a try if it worked or not. We'll definitely get a new one as well, just in case. We might even put a new one in and take the old one as a spare, but we'll see. So now we'll just test it and we'll let you know how it goes.
And while we were at it, hopefully it'll build enough pressure so we can bleed the brake lines, because they're obviously all full of air right now. So got a little makeshift bleeder. If you don't know how to make one of these, check, there's a bunch of YouTube videos of how to do it. And then make sure you start at the wheel furthest from the brake master cylinder, which would be in Australia the front driver's side. Then we'll go over and do the passenger driver's side, rear driver's side, rear passenger side. And we'll bleed front caliper first, back caliper next, and do that the same thing on both sides. You just want to make sure you have the longest line have the brake fluid inside, so it doesn't suck it out of the shorter lines. All right, let's get started. Come on, Yete, start it up. All right, try number 2. Oh my God. So we're trying to get all the rusty stuff out, the main tube part. And a 3mm drill bit actually works pretty well. And this one's actually pretty good, but some of the other ones we stuck on there, and when we turned it, we hit it like this, and like a bunch of rust fell out. And then
you can also use the screwdriver.
Yep, use a screwdriver or some MIG wire.
Yeah, this is actually really good. And here you can see if the MIG wire goes in this far,
then you know it's free.
Yeah. You could also try to go in this end, but you have to bend it a bit. And then when we think it's free, we just blow it out with compressed air. Yeah, like that. Putting the tray mounts back on. It's getting serious. So we got the forklift, the extension, and we're gonna lift the tray and put it on a mog. That's the plan. Let's see if it goes well or not. We had a bunch of wasp nests in there, like 5 big ones as well. Here we go. So we placed it almost right. It's just a bit of wiggling around now. The last bits. And it's on. Look at this. It looks so different now. Guys, we are off to Perth again, and it will be really exciting, but we'll take you all along with us. So we have to move to Unimog before we're leaving, and it's running at the moment. Look at it. We love it.
de soleil, pas de soleil, pas de soleil.